Thanks for joining us for April Power Hour. I am Tessa outside Indianapolis, joined by Megan Jax, who is outside Seattle for a little bit longer. And tonight we are going to work on two layouts. And as many of you know, we just got back from Mexico for the Creative Memories Incentive trip. And so both of us were scrambling to get layouts ready before we left so we could take the pictures so we could work on the handouts in Mexico. And then we had to email that all out yesterday before we left there. And if you noticed, it came early because I had to get that out before we caught our Uber. So that it has to go, we have to send it so that everyone that signs up after can get it too. So I was literally like hit send and then it was like throwing everything into my suitcase. I had like 15 minutes, literally laying on it, trying to get it to zip close. But I wanted to make sure you had the handouts and everything for tonight. And so we do have two simple layouts for you tonight. Mine is inspired by scraps left on the table. So if you have a collection you've been working on and you have strips of whatever laying around, this is a nice layout to put all of them together. And Megan has a little bit more technique in hers. So we will work through these together. So we'll flip down to my table. I'm going to pull my camera down a little closer. And so when I was choosing, I had some boho strips left out from a layout I was recently working on. And I actually did have some pictures I printed with my Epson from, this is the senior spring break trip I took with Emerson and her friends you guys heard about. And so I thought, what can I do to piece together the partials? And you're all familiar with kind of piecing together a base paper, which is what we're going to do tonight. And for the first time, I played with the postage stamp border punch. So how many of you have the postage stamp? Did you guys get that with the recent travel collection? It's actually pretty versatile. I like it because I think it gives the little windows. You can kind of center in some extra embellishments or whatever. So I am going to show one alternative tonight, but really this is an area you could adapt for any border punch that you have. This one is a chain, means it punches clean. But if you choose an edger, you could trim it down to fit this space. Or if you have a chain, this is a nice one too for, some of our BMCs, the chains are kind of small. And in some of our border punches, the chains are kind of big. And so this is a nice spot maybe to accent one of your border punches that has a little bit larger of a design that you want to focus in on the bottom. And the key then is just decorating it, if it's appropriate for your punch, with some little punches and pieces of paper. And so what really pulls this layout together is the use of multiple papers. And so I know you guys, some of you are challenged with, we should think of a term, paper challenge, paper pick out challenge, a pick out paper person challenge, something. I know some of you struggle with picking out your paper. And so we're going to talk a little bit about doing that tonight. So this is a layout you can fit just a couple of photos if you want, or you can trim them down and fit extra, of course, peekaboo, all the same options that we always have. So for tonight, I did not have any photos ready, and I literally went through all my papers to see, okay, which collection do I have a bunch of strips of? And we're going to see what happens. So this is Our Moments, which is the most recent kind of vintage heritage collection. So I have all these papers, and then I knew I needed a bigger piece out of something. So I pulled out a couple extra to think about. If you have your handout, it does have measurements on there, but there really is some leeway with how big your strips can be. And so we'll talk about that first. So I just told you to pick 3 or 4 if they're double-sided. Tip number 1, I see a lot of people ask in general, how do you store your paper? And some people suggest separating it and storing it like a rainbow. And my answer always is, don't do that, because then you are just undoing everything the designers did. And so when they put together a collection, they are starting with a color palette. And so if you take apart all the papers that came in a collection, then it's going to be harder for you to choose what to coordinate with. And sometimes these are not papers you would ever think would go together, but once you have it on the layout, it does piece together pretty well. Yeah, Megan, I like Megan's paper selection challenge. We'll put that one. We should vote at the end of it. Okay, so I pulled out all my papers, and I think it's easiest to back your way into selection. So if you have a collection, you can start with a couple of pieces out there. You can choose, choose your big pieces, maybe a big scraps, or maybe you have a print you want to highlight like I did on the boho one. I had this scrap. It's not 5.5 inches though. It's definitely not 6.5. So I was looking, well, it could fit my 5.5 piece. It's a little short. It's a little less than 5, and that's fine. This one actually has some room for layering. So you can make a note if you want to. The 5.5 piece actually only needs to probably be like 4 3/4 if you want to get a little bit, have to get a little bit pickier about how you weld it together. And then we have a 2-inch piece, which will go down here at the bottom. We have our big 6.5-inch piece, which is going to be the center piece, which is going to be the highlight, and then a little 3/4 inch for coordinating. And then the 1-inch piece, if you want to make a note, the 1-inch piece is for putting behind whatever border you choose to punch. And so you don't want to cut 1 inch until you decide what border you're going to use, because it's really a layering piece behind your punch if appropriate. Okay, so let's piece this together. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces of paper, and I know I'm going to choose this one. So I have this is going to be my first choice, and I can either choose this dark purple, or I have the light on the back. And then I can get into, there's brown tones, there's yellow tones. It's kind of a charcoaly gray, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to use for my big piece, like the 6.5 piece that's going to sit in the center. I could go dark, you know, you put kind of a light at the bottom. I could put the purple at the top. I could maybe choose a little bit of the gray tone for that skinny strip. And then I would just have to punch something. If you run out of papers, you can always obviously pull in cardstock to punch and layer with your punch. So that's a nice color selection. But so, what if I didn't want to use that dark base? The back of it's polka dots, which I like. You might be looking at the polka dots thinking that screams really loud. But once you get in your layering pieces, you can see it's going to tone down. And any large section like that, you're going to be covering with your photos and your mats. So you would just kind of see the accent. So I like that version too. And then we move over. We have, of course, the gold option. This is a floral. I could maybe do light purple at the top, dark purple. If I did do that gold, I could bring in this as my skinny strip and then decide, how I wanted to punch, what I wanted to punch with the gray or whatever. So another option with that. The back of it is a heavy gold. So you can see there's so many options, and I know it gets a little overwhelming. Sometimes the papers have a lot of choices. Some of them don't go great together. I probably wouldn't mix in my gold with the brown. But if I wanted to use the brown, I do have some brown choices. I would just choose a different base. And then I got to this piece. So this is a piece that's a little bit more of a subtle, kind of this postcard vintage pattern. And I like that. I think this is actually going to be the winner for my 6.5-inch piece. The back of it does have some gray. So I don't have great choices in the big papers, probably to use the brown. If I decided to do the brown, I would probably go back to this dark blue. You could also feed in the cameras to it. I could focus a little bit more on, I think by the end it would all be done. But ultimately I decided I wanted to work with this one. So now it's kind of process elimination. I have my big piece, so I could do dark purple at the top. And this I would cut down a little bit. It's a little bit bigger than 2. I could put light at the bottom. I have to decide what to punch. I need something that's going to have some contrast. So whatever you decide to punch out of and whatever you decide to layer behind it would need to have a nice contrast. This dark color would give me a nice contrast with something that I punch. And I do have the polka dots in the back. And I could also layer it just with this gray behind it. Would give a little bit of a different texture. And then for the skinny strip, if you're not sure, you can always come back to that. I could feed a little gold into there. I don't know if I would use a brown. I was thinking maybe actually a little pop of the cameras would be pretty. So this is the road I'm going down. while you think about what your papers are. And so then once you choose your pieces, we're going to cut down our paper. So if you do not want to weld together, you can use your base paper as your base paper, the largest one, the one that's 6.5 inches. You don't have to cut anything if you don't want to. But again, this originally was born out of using your scraps. And why not create more scraps if we can to have extra paper? So I am going to cut 6.5 inches with this one. And like I said, this big piece would be 5.5. Mine's a little bit smaller. It's fine as long as I have, close to 5 inches, I'm good. I'm going to do the lighter purple along the bottom. So I want 2 inches for this. I want 3/4 for the cameras, but what's actually more important to me is that I have a good little section that will show up when I layer it. And for this one, the top of it sits on top of the paper layering. So I'm going to cut along the top of my cameras to make sure I have a full set of cameras that will show. And then I want the strip to be about 3/4 of an inches. I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that. Like I said, it's layering. I'm going to be a little bit generous in my cut just so that I can potentially layer to see both rows of cameras. It can be a little bit harder to trim smaller strips. If you have struggles, you can use a little bit of repo tape on the back of it to hold it down on your trimmer. And then I decide what to punch. And so the one I thought I would play with tonight is Iron Gate. This is one that I know a lot of you have. It was a promo. I've never used it, but I thought it would work well with this. So I'm going to punch it in this color, which I've called charcoal, or it might be navy. I think it actually is blue. It's a pretty deep blue. An iron gate is a knockout. It's actually going to stay on the edge, and so I will trim it off once I punch it. If you're new to the border punches, some of them that have designs that look pretty similar, there's that little triangle notch, and that's helping me line up my design as I go. It does make a little bit of a mess. But you know what? My whole room looks like a mess, so welcome to the party. Okay, so I'm going to trim this off. And then I want a color to layer behind it. So I need to assess, how big of a strip do I need to layer? The directions say 1 inch. This is obviously wider than 1 inch. If I was using the postage again, it'd be 1 inch. And it looks like I could get away with about 1 3/4 or so to layer behind there. What do I want to layer behind it? I think really the only option I have left is this gray, but it's going to give me some texture difference between the two unless I wanted to pull out cardstock. I could also, if I had more of this, it'd be pretty to pop the purple, but I don't. I'm going to cut a strip of this to fit. That will layer behind here. Repositional tape is the way to go to connect these together. Ideally with your silicone mat. My silicone mat is tiny. So I'm going to revert back to my messy ways. I'll layer that one together. And I think about repos, you don't get it hidden exactly. You can redo it. Okay, so now I need to piece these together. And I need a 13 by 13 mat. You need something that will give you that 12-inch dimension. I'm gonna put the 5.5-inch piece along the top, the 2-inch piece along the bottom. So my 3/4 strip, which is actually the cameras, you're gonna adhere along the bottom of this strip. So if you wanna put 4-inch photos up here, this is your decision point. You need at least like 4 1/4 of space if you're gonna put photos without matting them. If you wanna have room for a photo mat, you need to go down closer to like 4.5 inches. If you're looking at our cutting mat, you're really looking at a backwards count, so it's looks like 8.5. And so I still have plenty of room that I can put tape along there. So I can use repo tape or I can use repositional. I don't know about the silicone mats. Sherry's asking if they will come out. They just did those as an advisor join gift. Some of us have, some of them in stock. I would guess eventually when we get further down the road, there will be one that comes along. Okay, so I'd hear that at 4.5. And now I got to put my 6-inch strip on. And as shown on the handout, I was really covering up. So I could do one row of cameras, or if I want to have a little bit more design impact, I can adhere this a little bit lower. What's going to happen is I'm going to be layering it lower on my 2-inch piece. I'm going to be covering that up. So I might want to either put my 2-inch piece on top, or I might want to cut this down smaller. So it only matters if you are set in like how you want to put your photos on the page. Um, I should have had a photo. I find any photo, any photo. Photo of my plant, actually, not the bad. So in this space here, you can layer more photos in. And so if I make this smaller by layering it down, I just don't have as much space, open space to decorate because I still have to get my border on here. But you can ignore my directions and adhere anything wherever you want to kind of create the layered effect. So what do you guys think? I thought I wanted 2 rows of cameras, but really with the spacing, I think one would be good. And then it's going to pop against the border down here at the bottom. But the one challenge I'm noticing though is that I don't have a lot of contrast between the layer of cameras and this print. They're both very light. And so I could decide to go back and add in an extra layer. If I wanted to add just a thin little strip in there, it would pop the difference of those papers together, and it does pop the cameras a little bit. If you did something like that, or even just with the 6-inch piece, this is a fun opportunity to use one of your blades. So how many of you rushed out to get the 2 new trimmer blades that they came out with? We have Pinking and Colonial. So this would be a good spot in any of them to cut the paper. So I thought I would use one of them tonight just for fun. Have you guys used either one? Which one do you think would go better with my layout? Maybe Colonial. I'm excited for the pinking. That is a design that I wanted. So we'll add both layers in here. So I just need enough of this that I can layer. So just a thin strip. And then I'm going to cut off, just cut the edge with the decorative blade. Go and put my straight black in, lest I forget I have Colonial in there. So the easiest way to layer this is if I adhere the dark contrast in first. So I'm going to put some tape on top of my cameras. I feel so fancy tonight. Do you guys like my pink nails? I do not usually have my nails painted because I'm very hard on my nails. But I feel like a true, like, video person now because most of the big ones that are really good have painted nails, so I'm enjoying I'm enjoying this. We'll see how long they last. It is gel, so it hasn't chipped yet. Okay, so I just need a little layer in there so I can adhere that. Before I adhere that, I have to decide what I wanna do about the bottom. So I want my 2 inches on top. I could also cut down 2 inches, if I decide I only want, like, 1, it's probably gonna be easiest if I adhere this, and then if I want this to be fatter, just cut down my purple. So let's go with that. I feel fancy too about my ring. So you guys see my ring? This was my gift to myself in Mexico. I don't know if you can zoom in on it. So the funny story about the ring is if you guys been to Mexico and they sell all the stuff along the beach, including all the jewelry. And so I went down there and I loved this one. And what I loved about it in the moment was that it was pretty small and it would fit this finger. And you guys know I'm not married. I don't have any prospects of being married. And I decided I didn't care. I wanted to wear the ring on that finger anyways. And then when I got home last night, I realized I must have been pretty swollen on the beach because it's a little too loose on that finger. So now I had to move it over to the middle finger. It's still pretty though. A lot of the girls were down there buying jewelry. I think I do want to cut down my purple a little bit, maybe down to like 1.5, just so I can hold on to a little bit more of that print in the middle. Cut this down. So as you can see, the directions are optional. The key is really just to build your layers. It's a very simple design. The design impact of it just comes from having multiple papers, multiple designs, and adding a little texture with your punch too. And then I still can decide, where I want to layer my border in, depending on where you want your photos to fit, how much I want to see. I have one ended up cutting this a little bit wider on one end. I think this is the side that was punched, and that's the side I trimmed. I'm gonna keep the wider on the bottom because it's fatter and darker. And layer it down here about a little higher. It's about 7/8 or so. So that gives me a nice page that I can fit photos in up here, or I could do down here. And then if you get to it and you're like, you know what, I really want my photo to be lower, I want it to center it more. It's a beautiful thing about repo tape. You can just pull it up, move it down, and make it work. I can also, of course, layer this way or not. And then the fun thing about the border then is you want to start thinking about what can you accent with, what can you tuck in there. So depending on the collection that you're using, some of them are good about having good embellishments and stickers for layering, some of them not so much. So like on the boho one, I used the 5 leaf, so I chose a punch that was a little bit larger impact, and I layered 1 over here and 2 over here behind the border, and then I grabbed a sticker, and then this is like the leaf trio, a flower trio. Just open your punches wherever they are and just find little ones if you use the postage, things you can tuck in there, and then just use the rest of your scraps to provide layering. And for this one, I have stickers that work. I have some of these that will tuck in there, or I could punch out. I don't even have any photos yet. I have no idea what I'm going to use this page for, but these foiled ones would be really pretty to tuck in there. Pull out some hearts. Megan loves hearts. We'll dedicate that one to her. You can dig through and see what you can find. Little tag. I could have gone with a layered. It's cute. Something about our story. Whatever photos I choose will have a story, right? I did pull out, like I said, you can go pull out your punches. Even like, the lace butterfly would be pretty. I don't think I have any large pieces of purple left. I could use this one. Butterfly fly away. I did not see it come out. You can find your punches, and you can layer them anywhere, wherever your photos are going to allow you to have space. You could tuck them in here a little bit too. And this one is small enough. I could tuck leafy things into Iron Gate. If you don't have a lot of punches, but you do have the border maker system, one suggestion I had was the picket fence. And so if you punch the picket fence, you could cut even out some of the pickets if you want to have wider spaces like the postage punch. I think this one's probably the closest one you could adapt to it. You're going to have the pickets on one side, and then you can either tuck things in along your pickets or cut out some pickets you have wider holes. So if you don't have this one, or can't find something, a lot of you I know have the picket fence for that. So that is how I would pull this layout together with scraps. And of course now I have more strips. Create whatever with that. So, okay, any questions or anything? I don't know how it's gonna, maybe I'll cut some mats and post it. I do have variety mats, and then that would look a little bit more finished, because I can promise you I will not have photos by tomorrow. You can pick through your variety mats and find ones that will pop against your colors. Look at the back of them. See what I got? Not brown. I could do family tree or something. So, okay, well, that's my version of simple. Meggan's has a little bit more design to it, at least. She has a little more technique for us.
I don't know that there's that much technique in it.
You have
This
to
is,
fold something.
you have to fold something, there's some precision involved. That's what this is. That's what it is. Let me see here. Okay, so yes, we've got some precision coming up. But yeah, thanks for joining us. As Tessa mentioned, it was I think we were both messaging each other on last Monday or Tuesday. We're like, we're doing power hour when we get back, right? We're not gonna like decide to reschedule this or anything like that. And she's like, nope. And I'm like, okay. And so there may have been a slightly mad dash into at least my layout, but I think it works. I didn't have any photos, so I'm kind of bummed about that, but I've got really good potential. So I did make sure to do it kind of neutral using the denim revival. But I'm going to switch to my overhead camera and we will get my section going. Tessa left me with a whopping, I was almost going to say 18 minutes, but apparently I cannot do math tonight. So um, my layout, here it is. And very simple, a single page layout here, room for 4 photos. You can adjust as needed. These are shown as 4x4s. Well, actually, it's a 4x4 mat with a 3 3/4 inch photo. You could peekaboo pocket that with a 4x4. You could, of course, arrange things as you need to on here. And if you want to expand it to a 2-page layout, you could do so. You would have the 4 corner pieces we're going to create, and then you would just come in with some rectangles to carry the thing across the 2 pages. So for tonight's layout, again, I don't have any photos, so I thought I would use the riveting collection. I thought that would be fun. We've been doing a lot of projects around the house. We're getting ready to sell the house, and so thought it would be fun to have a have some stuff that works for the home improvement stuff. So I see Linda's asking a question about using the 11 and a half inches. I would go ahead and cut them. I would do them at 10 inches, and then you can make the adjustment afterwards. I mean, you probably cut them at 9 3/4 and it would work out fine, but I would probably fold them, put them on, and then make that determination after you've done your placement. It's easy enough to chop the ends because that's what I had to do. I initially started with 10 and a half and realized that was too wide or too long. And so I had to cut it down to 10 inches. So as Tessa mentioned about paper selection and, how do we handle it when we are trying to make decisions about paper? So I really was looking for pieces of paper that when I folded them, that both sides complemented each other. I mean, they usually do, they're within the collection, right? But there was a little bit of contrast without being too much contrast. So for the denim revival, I did pick one that had like a medium tone denim and then a lighter denim, ended up matting it on navy cardstock. For riveting, I was looking for, front and back that I liked that were, as I mentioned, they contrasting, especially if I thought I was going to use the kind of blueprint inspired paper as my background piece. Instead of using cardstock, I thought I would use this bluish uh, blueprints. And then I was going in here and looking through, well, I could use the blue stripes. It has the wood grain on the pack. Those are both nice and contrasting with the blue here. And then I think, well, or I could come in, I could use the white with the tape measure on the back side, the crumpled paper with the tape measure. And then the other thing I realized is, well, I don't have to choose. I could just use both. So really, if you have scraps, I mean, you guys may have some leftover strips of paper that Tessa you had used with Tessa. One thing I do want to mention that I'm cutting everything to 1.5 inches wide. That's kind of a reference. If you would like to have more space in here, you could cut them at 1 inch. The width really doesn't matter. The length is the part that's important. The 10 inches is what's going to allow us to fold and turn the corner. But if this was cut at 1 inch, it would just give us more space in the middle. So that's something to think about if you're left over with some 1 inch strips. You could piece this together with 4 different pieces of paper. Also, you'd have all sorts showing 8 different prints all around this. So I used the same paper on this one. I thought it'd be fun for the next one to mix it up and use 2 different pieces of the denim revival, or excuse me, riveting. I'm just going to cut 1 inch. I'm going to cut 2 1.5 inches strips off of each one of these papers. So set this to the side for a moment. And as I mentioned here, I am going to cut the 1.5 inch strips off of each one of these pieces. This one, I have a little bit of a direction to it. This is the wood grain. The opposite side has the diagonal stripe. I am going to go ahead, I think, and cut against the wood grain. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this paper to the side and go ahead and cut this at 1.5 inches. And I prefer to cut the 1.5 inches on the left, or excuse me, the right side of my trimmer. Some people you can line it up on the other side. That's my preference there. So I'll go ahead, slide this over to 1.5 inches and cut. Again, if you have all those blades you want to do, you could use your decorative blades to cut your strips. You would just want to go ahead and cut the leading edge to establish that decorative edge, and then go ahead and make the ensuing cuts. I'm going to stick with the straight blade. There's 1.5. There's one at 1.5, and here's going to be a second one. And then let's take a look at this one. So the crumpled paper really has no direction to it, right? It's just, you could rotate it and it really doesn't matter. However, my tape measure does. I can either cut against my tape measure here, so you can see all the different pieces of the tape measure, or I could cut along with my tape measure. So when it folds over, it almost looks like that tape is being extended out. One thing I don't know is I don't know how this pattern is. If I come over here to 1.5, so I set maybe it's easier if on this side. If I set this to 1.5, and I'm kind of looking to see where my line is going to come down. It's going to come down right along the edge here. And so I will see, essentially, I will see, let's show, I'm just going to pull in another piece of paper here so I can envision what this looks like. This is what I'm going to see when I have my strip. This is what the 1.5 looks like. Now, one thing I can do is I can also see what the other side is. I am not sure if these papers, sometimes we can see that they're even on the both sides. They look to me like they're not quite even, meaning that the pattern isn't the same on the other side. So if I rotate my paper around, and I'm going to, again, I'll use this other piece of paper to just envision what it looks like. And that's what the piece looks like if I go this side. I think I like this cut a little bit better. Now, granted, this is the first cut. I'm going to have to make a second cut after I do this one. It may not look as great, but I do like this. So I'll go ahead and cut here at 1.5 inches. And then I have the option to do the same thing again. I can see, what does this side look like? This is, here it is, 1.5 inches, and I'm going to cut, it's going to look like that. Will be my 1.5 inch strip right there. Let's take a peek at the other side again. I already looked at it once, but maybe I like it better than the other one. I do think I like this one a little bit more, that I just have that single band of the lighter piece, which is actually going to look more similar to this piece. The other side, maybe you don't remember when I was looking at it, it showed 2 of the lighter bands down the middle. Just happens to be how this pattern cuts when you cut it at 1.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and slice here, 1.5 inches, line it up, and cut. All right, now I need to trim everything down to 10 inches. So I will go ahead, you can just chop off 2 inches. You can bring out your cutter and cut at the 10, whichever you prefer. You could stack and cut. I prefer just to cut them individually. All right, so next up, we need to go back and grab our 13 by 13 inch mat, or you need something, the 13 by 13 inch mat. Hopefully you guys have one. If you are new or just the first few power hours with us, this is a key tool that we use all the time. The joy of this, as many of you know, is we have the measurements on the outside all the way around. So when you put a 12-inch piece of paper on here, you can still see all the measurements. That is, if you have the old Creative Memories mat, 12 by 12, you'll note that there's no outside measurements, but the new one, it's been around for a while, so it's not quite new, but is definitely a lovely tool to use, and is definitely one of the essential ones when we talk about essential tools for our scrapbooking classes. So here, I've got my 12 by 12, or my 13 by 13 mat here. It's 12 by 12, but it's actually 13 by 13. So I don't know, we just refer to it as 13 by 13. What you're going to do is you want to line up the top edge of your 1/2 inch strip or 1.5 inch strip, and you're going to go ahead, line it up at 5 3/4. So here's 0 at the bottom. I'm coming up to 5 3/4. All right. So 1/4 inch away from 6. Then I'm going to bring this bottom flap up, and I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to push this up a little bit higher so you can see it. And I'm going to bring it over, and I'm going to come here to 5 3/4. That should allow me to rest along the bottom edge. And you want to use the lines of the 13 by 13 mat to help you get it straight. We want a nice right angle here. And once you have it, you're going to hold things in place, and go ahead, if you can, use your thumb there to push that fold. I'm going to repeat that with the other piece. And I did all 4 of my pieces on my initial sample. I did them all the exact same. So you can see here, I would have started with a medium tone denim at that 6 3/4 on the vertical edge, and then folded it to expose the lighter denim on the back over here to the 5 3/4 at the bottom. And I did all of the pieces the same. So I started with the medium, going in the vertical orientation, folding to show the light. So I'm going to do my two pieces here the same way. I've got my the ruler here. Thank you, Mary. She's like, you're doing 4 3/4. I'm going to come up here to 5 3/4. I appreciate that. 5 3/4. Pulling it up and over, and you're going to come over here to 5 3/4 along the other edge as well. Using the guide, the 13 by 13 mat, to help you get those nice right angles. So I've got two pieces. So now what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just kind of quickly envision, because I'm using two different pieces of paper, I've got two different strips. I wanted to make sure that I like how my pattern is going to go around my page. So it's going to look it's going to look kind of like this, right? I'm going to have the L shape going, or maybe it's going to look like this. I don't know. Regardless, these pieces are going to be in as such. Now I need to make my decision. Am I going to come over here like this so that my patterns are separated? And let's get my blue paper out, because that's going to maybe help me envision this. Because I'm using two different pieces. If I was using all of the same, I could go ahead and make it the same, and it just, the pattern works out. I don't have to check it per se. But because I am, and the other thing too is, I don't know, maybe I want more. Oh, I think I want more of that yellow, the ruler showing rather than the white. The white is really bright. So I think I'm gonna make that quick change. And see how easy that was? I just flipped it around. I want more of the ruler showing. So Lynn's giving us the hint that if you cut 1-inch strips with a top edge of 5.5 before folding. I'll have to experiment with that, because my mind tells me that the width should be okay, but I'll maybe play with that. We'll cut another strip here and just see. So now if I come in here like this, let's see. Well, everything is backwards. So that's the other thing. If you flip it, then you kind of have to do, I've got to work the other direction. So I reversed it. So basically, do I want it to be like this and then to come up like such? And I think I do. I think I want it to go basically patterned to a tonal neutral to a pattern to a tonal neutral. So that's what I'm going to do. My 1.5 inch strip, I'm lining up at 5 3/4. And lining that up there. I have to flip mine the other direction. To make that work. So I folded it as such. I think I did this one backwards. That's what I get for, because I needed to go like this. I did. I folded mine backwards because I reversed this one. That's my issue. So here I am trying to make something that was supposed to be fairly straightforward, and I did it wrong. I think I'm going to be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come in here I need that side up. I need to have my pattern side up and fold. But I think it's going to be okay. I've got a light enough piece here that it's not going to show that duplicate fold. There we go. Oh my gosh, this was supposed to be way less complicated. There we go. That's ultimately what I wanted right there. Okay. So once you have that, you will go ahead and put every piece down. I would go ahead and put your paper on the back of the 13 by 13 mat. And you could even come in. Sometimes what I like to do is use a little bit of repo adhesive on the back side of my paper. And that will let me just tack in the sheet so that it doesn't wobble around on my 13 by 13 mat. I can get it locked into place. I need to use my measurements all the way around it. And now it won't move. My paper won't move. So I can start putting my pieces in. And you're going to have them offset just a little bit. I think when I came in here, it's about 1/8 of an inch off of the edge. So just shy of like 6 or 5 7/8 is about where you want to be. You can use repo adhesive if you want, if you prefer the ability to make some adjustments. If you want to make sure you have a nice tight fold there, put some repo adhesive along that edge and then fold that in. And then you just start placing it in there. Don't put a lot of pressure down, just put the pieces in place. And that will allow you, if you need to make any adjustments, you can definitely do that. Just keep track of what direction the pieces need to go. That's why it was easier with the first one I did when everything was basically just the same piece. But you can see it's kind of fun showing those different patterns going all the way around. That piece comes in as such. Quick change on the adhesive, like it's a NASCAR pit stop. And one more piece to put in there. I'm really, I think, zoomed in a little closer with my camera this time. All right, so there's the 4 pieces all the way around, and we can see the different patterns coming through. Definitely, I love the variety of patterns and textures within this particular collection. After this, your next choice is to start thinking about how you arrange your photos. And really what you have here is kind of a blank slate. You can put your photos on here however you want, whatever makes sense for you. The 4 corners is obviously kind of a default one that works out pretty well, but you could adjust as needed. And then your option too is depending on how you want to do your the photos, that how you want to handle the mats. I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 mats, I think, from this brushed steel. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I don't think I'm going to use the other side with all the icons on it. I'll just stick to using the brushed steel. I could also use navy in here, would look really good, or another brown, whatever kind of neutral. But I do think that the silver would be a nice thing all the way around the photos, be a nice matte. So I'm going to cut some 4-inch mats for this. You could wait to do your mats. If you don't have photos ready to go yet, you could just hold off. Maybe use a post-it note to remind yourself of what mats you're thinking of using. Especially if you're thinking of using a pattern paper, but you don't want to cut your mats yet. And you don't, if you could keep your pattern paper with it, or you could just keep it all in the collection. And the photos just, or the mats get kind of tucked into each one of these corners, or you can bring them a little bit closer together. I think that's what I did in my sample, is I didn't necessarily keep them this way. This piece needs a adjustment. I didn't keep my mats really within their respective corners. I bunched them a little bit more together in the middle, which just gave it a lovely I don't know, they were just kind of a little more clustered in the middle, maybe not as I did not maintain this same, you see the spacing between the pieces? I didn't maintain those for my mats. I kept my mats a little bit closer, giving a little bit more space on the outside. One of the things I noted here, if you look in the original sample, I have space if I wanted to come in like with maybe my silver journal pen and do a little bit of stitching detail, or if you have a white or maybe the chalk pen, you could do some stitching detail around the whole thing, coming in with a finer tip pen if you want to do some stitching on the denim. That would be really cute, especially because there is a stitching detail in one of those cute little pockets. On your other ones, maybe in this one, I come in and do some dots all the way around, kind of those rivets. I don't know that I have space to do the hole punch, the 1/4-inch holes here. I would probably just come in with a dot pen and try to do dots all the way around. Just some different things you can consider trying. I'm just going to use some repo adhesive here to put these in place. Again, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there until I have everything in place where I want it. I don't have good spacing. I would need to take a little bit more time. I think I was just pushed it a little bit. I can see here that I'm off on this side over here. This piece needs some adjustment. I want them to line up with each other so that you can see a frame all the way around. And then my sample, I did room for 3 photos using another spot for embellishment. Since I didn't actually have photos, you might have room for all 4 photos. You can peekaboo pocket them. Just kind of however works best for you, whatever you want to do there. So in general, that is the general layout here. So I do see a comment saying, my pieces aren't evenly spaced. It does take a little bit of, I don't know, like I can tell over here, my pieces probably need a little bit of adjustment here. Repo adhesive is wonderful for that. You can kind of tweak it a little bit. And so hopefully that comes together. I do want a really quick experiment because somebody mentioned the 12-inch or the 1-inch piece was a little bit different. So I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper. Well, I'll just cut, figure out where I put my trimmer. I'm going to cut just one of these strips at 1 inch and just see, we'll go 1 by 10. I mean, I did it at 1.5 in my mind. You should be able to still cut it at 2 inches and go corner to corner to do the 5 3/4 should work. I have that adhesive on the back. I'm going to carefully pull it off, and then I flip it over and just give it a quick rub with my hands, and then I'll take that adhesive off, pull it off my mat. That should still work. So here, this is cut 1 by 10. If I pull this here, yeah, you are going to want it to be a little bit longer. Let's see here. So it does give you a little bit of a different, you kind of have to figure out where that middle point is. It looks like it would be closer to starting at 5.5. So there is some adjustments to be made with those pieces. If you are using a smaller strip, if you're coming in with a narrower strip, I would leave it at the 12 inches. And you can just play around with it using your mat here. I don't have the conversions for every single one. So if you're just starting out, go ahead, stick with the 1.5 inch. And if you do need something narrower because you want that bigger space, you would need to go ahead and experiment with the sizes. If you cut it to 1 inch by 10 inch, start it at 5.5 and fold over to 5.5. And then what you'll be able to do is when you put it on your page, you'll be able to come out a little bit more of a space, coming maybe closer to a 1/4 of an inch off your page rather than the 1/8. You should still have a decent amount of space in that middle, a little bit bigger in there. So there is the overall pieces. So that wraps up my layout. Of course, you can add embellishments as you want, add your photos. The 4-inch mats require the 3 3/4, or you could use 3.5-inch photos, square photos if you want. All right. So let me bring up to my regular camera here. In terms of general announcements, so we can get kind of through the power hour part, and then we can see about the any chatting that I don't know if I have any good stories from Mexico. This wasn't quite as, I didn't fall in the water this time. I can put that. But for Power Hour, you have a hashtag on the page at the top of the page is for it to say April 2024 PH. Go ahead and use that hashtag when you share it. You could share it into the Ideas and Inspiration Facebook group. That's the one that Tess and I have together. It has a green header at the top. And our next Power Hour is, I think we have a date, but I really don't remember when it is. It's in May. And I think it's the second Tuesday. Or is that what it is? Tessa's getting out her calendar because I know we talked about it. And so she'll remind us here shortly. And so you have until the end of this month, the 13th, is the 14th. May 14th is when
I can talk. I'm off mute. May 14th.
I guess you could talk instead of showing me numbers backwards. I'm like 31st. I'm like, because I didn't realize you had 4 fingers up. I got too distracted with that pretty nail polish. I do like how you said that the good and popular people have painted nails.
I know if you painted your nails, you'd have even more viewers.
It would skyrocket, right? They comment. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You would look more professional and you'd have more legitimacy.
I would have more legitimacy. That's it. That's what's holding me back right now, right? I'll keep that in mind. So you have until the end of this month. Then Tessa will do a drawing towards the beginning of May for the prize, the happy mail that we send out for those of you who share. But please do share your hashtag. Double check that hashtag when you post it, because that is how we look them up. So if you have any kind of a mistype in that hashtag, it doesn't pull up when Tessa goes to grab all those. I think the other big thing coming up is going to be at some point this month or early in May, we will open up registration for Summer Scrap. Hard to believe we are already talking about Summer Scrap. That is our 8-week scrapbooking kind of a challenge that we do. We call it the Summer Scrap Challenge. And it's really these layouts, these ideas, what we're challenging you is to keep making progress on your projects as you go through the summer. It's easy to get distracted with all sorts of good things going on in the summer, but the Summer Scrap Challenge is basically a 8-week class course that'll just keep you motivated. We just do some, fun things. It's a great sense of community. And we're really looking forward to that. So that will happen. The registration, we'll get that ready to go on our website. It'll definitely be up before the next time we get together for Power Hour. It'll start June 1st ish, somewhere in there. I can't remember if we're starting right on June 1st. I can't remember what day June 1st falls. So I think that's really all we have for announcements. I do see that somebody had a comment asking if there were any hints on the secret box. I do not want to talk about. I've seen the secret box, so has Tessa. It's quite delightful. I don't want to. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who really wants to be surprised. So you can reach out to Tessa or I if you want to have full detail. If you want hint of detail, you can go to the secret box page. There is a landing page where you scroll all the way to the bottom and it'll tell you the types of products that are in there. So it'll tell you, it gives you specifics. So without its general product type. I do also see a question that's asking if I'm doing Scrapbook Live tomorrow, and that would be a no. So just quick for me, I probably will not have Scrapbook Live again until May, which is like in 2 weeks, simply because my life is a disaster at the moment. My house is in disarray as we're getting ready to sell. I did find a house. We were there last week or the week before last for the spring break. We found a house, we put in an offer, and the lovely part of it is we have to have a contract on our house by May 6th, which won't be a problem, but we really do need to get our house on the market. My house is nowhere near that. And the next week, I have to be out of my house starting on Wednesday so they can get ready for the showings and stuff like that. So Scrapbook Live is on hold until May, but it's all good. It's all good. Just don't forget about me. And Tessa, maybe are you going to have some live stuff coming up on Fridays?
Not this Friday, and I haven't looked past this week. We have soccer in Cincinnati Friday, so I'll be leaving about 6 a.m. for the weekend.
So yeah, you
That's
get a little.
That's a hot no.
That's a
And I
hot
don't
no
know
for Friday.
I
It's a
don't
hot
know
no
what
for.
next week even is. What is next week? I mean,
It's a Friday. It's
no,
like the.
because next week's my retreat, and ask me how much I
Oh,
planned
that's
for that.
right.
How much have I planned for next week's retreat? Nothing.
Nothing. She'll
Nothing.
have it whipped out real quick here. So I think that's all of our exciting stuff for Power Hour stuff. I don't know. We'll bring Tessa up as a spotlight here. Do you have any super exciting stories? I mean, Tessa, so last year when Tessa and I went to Mexico, we kind of were a duo together because there was nobody else. I mean, there were random people at the resort to talk to, but there wasn't 100 other. Oh, there's a cat rear end. um, there wasn't 100 other people that we wanted to chat with. So we really just talked to each other. We did, just fun things together. We did fun things with each other this time, but we also did fun things with other people. And in fact, Tessa told me that she didn't want to talk to me anymore because she wanted to go talk to other people, that she talked to me all the time.
I literally talk to her every day. I don't need to talk to her the entire time I'm there. I don't think that's
No,
mean. She needs
no.
to go talk to other people, or we have nothing to talk about when we talk about if we haven't talked to anyone else or had any
I
other
just
experiences.
I have to give her a hard time simply because I know it gets her riled up. I am a little bit more of a person that I don't know. I had some great conversations with people. If you were any of you, there are advisors on here who were at the event, hopefully, we had a chance to chat. That was a lot of fun and just enjoyed Mexico. I had a tendency to go sit at a cabana and just kind of ignore things. I really didn't do any crazy excursions or anything like that, just because I knew when I got back here to real life that it was going to be pretty chaotic. So I was trying to stay on top of a few business things and just enjoy the weather. I mean, it was beautiful when we were there, but I don't have any, I don't have,
Well, I'll take over then because she's
okay, good. Here we
offering
go.
nothing.
Since I
So
have nothing.
we both flew in on Thursday, and it was fairly uneventful. If you guys remember last year, I got stuck in Dallas, but I was a little late. So yeah, a lot of you guys are south, and all those storms that were going through last Thursday through Texas, Louisiana, Florida, all of that. She came from Seattle, so there was nothing interfering with that. I left super early, like 7 a.m., because I did not want to be on the last flight after last year. And so I fell asleep. After my 3.5 hour nap, the night before. I slept and I woke up at about 2 hours, and I was like, we were literally nowhere close to landing. And so then I had to ask the people next to me, I was like, did we reroute? Like, why are we not like coming down? And so so then I had to text Cooper. Don't you love technology? Like full Wi-Fi, 30,000 feet up. I just think it's amazing. So then I text Cooper, like, what did my plane do? Because he has all the apps, right? So he looked it up and sent me a screenshot of the flight plan. So I'm in Indianapolis, and we basically like flew east and then south down over Oklahoma and the playing states to get there. So we added about 35 minutes. So Meggan beat me. I was supposed to beat her. So then she was waiting on the other side of customs and I ended up she like went right through. I got stuck. Their customs is not hard, but it's just long. There's a lot of people coming in. And then you get up there and they want to know two things. They want to know your flight number and how many days you're staying. And I thought she meant like what my birthday was. I didn't know it was flight number. I messed that part up. She's like, you need to know your flight number. Like, got it. Well, next time you go, know your flight number before you go through customs. And then we took our Uber. A lot of other people were doing shuttles, but we're independent. I'm independent. I don't want to wait around for anyone else on the ride. So we Ubered. It's super easy on the app and it's so cheap. Do any of you guys Uber around? If you Uber anywhere in the US, it's not, I mean, it's cheaper than like a cab or whatever, but it's like half the price in Mexico. And so I would always give them like 100 peso tip, which was only like $6 because the whole fare, like 45 minutes to the airport, was like $13. When I Ubered from Megan's house to the airport, because the whole week, I could talk all night because the week before this, when Megan was in Phoenix, I stayed at her house in Seattle to cat sit Miss Kitty with the twins. So we did all the Seattle stuff. And I paid like $120 to Uber to the airport from her house. And we paid like 13 in Mexico. It's crazy. What did we do that first night? Eat,
We
hang out.
ate and we chatted about stuff, and then I think
Oh, they had
you
a
had a long
welcome
call with
reception.
Emerson that night.
Oh, everything. Oh, they did have a welcome reception at one of the bars. So we stayed at the Hilton, which was an all-inclusive, and they had like 3 or 4 different bar areas. And so one of them was designated as kind of the welcome. So we were able to go there and meet like the home office people. So the people for the home office were Allison Dutton, who is our CEO, Amber Klemick, who is our like advisor liaison, Sherry, who does all the product, all the PD, all that stuff goes through her. Marnie Belt, who is lovely. She's one that organizes all of it. She's kind of over the emails, communication. Noreen, you guys all know Noreen. She was there. That's all 5, right? That's everyone. Yeah, I think that was her.
Yeah, I
So
think
we're
that
able to
was
chat
it.
with them a little bit, and then meet up with the different advisors we met along the way. And the Thursday night was the market. But we went on Wednesday. That's why I'm screwed up. Wednesday's when we went. Thursday night, they had a market. So when we went last year, it was done. It ends the end of April because it gets hot there. So we went down to the little market and they have like vendor spots and food and just walk around the marina. It was really nice. We Ubered there and back. I did a boat trip with some of them. Megan opted to stay at the Guyana. So we rented the Bally beds. That's why we got spoiled. So you could sit on regular chairs with umbrellas, but the one thing I didn't love about it at first, but then I thought it was fine, is most resorts I'm at, you can stay down on the beach, like rent your cabana on the beach. And we were up more on a platform because the tide comes in so close that was really built up. And so you could not access the sand very well. You could just look at it. You probably saw our pictures. I mean, it was a gorgeous view. And we got the Bally bed for the first day. And then we were all spoiled because they have to have real thick cushions on there. And then it has the curtains to like block the sun. And so then Megan had one every day that she was she's like, where's the Bali bed gonna be? They had was buffets. We had to get reservations like 26 hours in advance for the real restaurants. And so we were buffeting until we found friends who would make reservations for us. But the breakfast was really good. My favorite thing down there is the green juice. Did you go to Mexico? I think they have it everywhere. It's this green juice, which I love. She doesn't ever try it, but that's okay. She drinks her water. Did you drink anything? A mimosa. You started one a day
I
that you
had
missed.
I had green juice last year. I'm not a big juice drinker. I prefer if I'm going to have sugar that I chew something while I drink it, unless it's a daiquiri. That's my kind of juice.
I
Strawberry
think most
juice with rum.
well, and that's true. I don't usually like to drink my sugar. This juice is green, it's not quite so, but they have like so many pastries, which was fun too. And then they have like a pegboard with donuts on them. They would hang the donut rings up on the pegboard, which was fun. And they had real food for breakfast, which I liked. Like we usually ate the real breakfast, and then we didn't really eat much lunch. We'd get the guacamole. They had like two little food trucks that sit out all the time. One was like vegetarian stuff with guacamole and chips, and the other had like burgers and chicken and stuff. And then of course the servers would come around and get your drink order. I don't think they always put very much alcohol in them, which is fine. I drank the blue Hawaiian, which is like frozen, it has a blue curacao in it and rum. But I could drink like 5 of them, and it was like drinking smoothies, so I don't know what they put them. You start out in margarita and then switched to the mojito, right?
Yeah, I started out with a margarita at the that first night and I just didn't care for it. So then I was kind of worried and then I switched over. It is all dependent on the bartender too. And then so I switched over to a mojito, which ebbed and flowed. I found that they didn't do a great job of mixing up, like they would just pour the stuff in. So you really needed to get a straw from them so you could kind of mix it up. And then I switched over to drinking. I would tell them that I wanted that like half the alcohol, which probably was like the equivalent of no alcohol. But and then on the last day, I told them I was just drinking daiquiris without it, just because I'm on a medication. I'm not so sure if I'm supposed to drink any alcohol, so I figured I better just dial this back. And I didn't drink a whole lot. I was trying to mix in a lot of water and everything, just a couple drinks a day. Oh, I do have. Oh, you guys will enjoy this story because it involves alcohol, and Tessa knows exactly where I'm going with this one. So we have somebody made dinner reservations to go to the Italian restaurant at on site. So we go there, and Tessa's all the gals we were with. She's on there, and they got there a little bit before us. They're sitting down, they're enjoying some wine. They asked Tessa and I, what do we want to drink? And so I'm like, I'm just gonna have water. And Tessa's like, well, do you have a Chardonnay or a
Pinot
Pinot Grigio?
Grigio. Pinot Grigio.
And they're like, sure, we do. And then I don't know what else you said. Did you point to something on the menu?
Well, yeah, he brought me the menu, so I'm looking over the menu, like my 2 choices, and I picked one out, like the cheaper one. I was like, "Well, this is fine." And then I realized when he brings the bucket for the ice that I had managed to order a bottle
She ordered the whole
and not a
bottle.
glass.
No.
And
He
it
looked at
was
her and he's like, she looked like she needed a bottle. And it worked out fine. So I think you and I basically sort of split it, I guess, in a way. And then there was a little bit left over. We didn't finish the bottle. Did you ever finish it back in your room?
No, I gave it to one of the other girls. It's funny because I mean, those of you that ever order wine by the glass in the US, 850 is a pretty standard price a lot of times. Well, this was 850 pesos, and I know that. I mean, I know what the pesos are, but we're talking, I'm not really thinking about it. I don't understand why he didn't offer me a glass because the other girls had just glasses. And so I ordered an $850 glass or a bottle of Pinot Grigio. It had a screw top, which
850 pesos.
which is like 40, $50,
40 or 50. It
60.
was probably
Yeah.
close to 50. 1,000 pesos is $60.
Yeah. So then he brings it, and I do not order bottles of wine. Then it sits there, he puts it in the ice, and then Emily's like, "Is he gonna pour it for you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I think maybe it's chilling." And then he finally does come back, and then he gives me the little bit to taste, and like as if I'm gonna say no. I'm like no connoisseur. I just know I like the middle of the range. And yeah, then Meg, I was like, you got to bring Megan a glass because I'm definitely not drinking all this by myself. And it's funny too at that restaurant, which is fine. We did not go hungry. They give you very tiny portions, which I've heard. I don't cruise, but I've heard that's what it's like on some of the cruises. Do you get fairly small entrees on the thing? But and then the desserts. But Megan did not love the desserts in general out there overall.
I have a really big sweet tooth, and I felt like some of this stuff just didn't have quite the same. I don't know, just it wasn't tripping my trigger. I ended up ordering a piece of carrot cake from room service, and it comes this like yay big, like this little rectangle thing, and I'm like, oh come on, there's a Costco locally. Can't you get that for me? The one night, I would say the best food that was buffet style that we had was actually they had a special excursion for depending what level of the trip that you earned. And Tessa and I went on that, and the food there was fantastic. And they had really good desserts. That one was probably more of a they get something somewhere. I get the feeling that maybe that's not like they're not making the desserts on site there. They're just bringing in something and chopping it up really small and giving it to us. So that to me felt more like of American style, like small pieces, but it was sugared the American way, I guess is how to
And
say it.
they really do have a Costco. We passed a Costco on the way to the market, and I had my Visa, my Costco Visa with me. I really did want to go in. We didn't go in, but if I ever go back, I will try to see if my Costco Visa will get in the Mexican
You got those
Costco.
empanadas down on that one night. You said that was pretty tasty.
Yeah, the empanadas were good, and that whole excursion was nice too. It's called was it Rhythm of the Night, and you have to like ride a boat over to like it's not an island per se, but it's like the tip
A
of the
private
bay.
a private beach south of Puerto Vallarta. Takes about an hour on the boat to get there.
Yeah,
45
and
minutes maybe.
it wasn't, and then I had some great entertainment. I was sitting with another advisor, and there was a girl on there who had well past her limit for she got on the boat, and I don't know where her pole was, but she was using her boyfriend or husband, whoever it was, as her pole. If you catch my drift, we're like, perhaps they could go find their own room somewhere. And I thought for sure she would be passed out on the way home, but I think she sobered up over dinner. Luckily, we didn't have to watch that show. But then on the way back, they had like they were singing, like dressed up like, was it Kiss? They were
Oh,
like
the crew on the ship.
the crew on the boat were all dressed up on the way
Yeah,
back.
they dressed up as I mean, they came out like dressed like 80s doing something for Wham, and then they had something with Kiss. And I don't know, I couldn't see it. I was up on top and you just couldn't get a good view.
Yeah, and then the show in general was really good. It was like acrobatics, balancing,
It's a Cirque du
fire.
Soleil
Yeah.
inspired type thing.
Yeah. That was a nice trip over there. And then the next mornings when I did the boat trip with some of the other ones, they did a catamaran over. It's actually the same spot, except during the day, they have like snorkeling and banana boat and all that. Fun fact about me, I don't love to get in the water, and it has to be if I was gonna snorkel, it'd have to be in the Caribbean probably, but I'm happy to sit on the boat. So Megan stayed in her cabana, I rode on the boat, and it was very lovely, and I ordered a glass and just got 1 glass on the boat, and that was nice, like little lunch and all that, so, and then I don't think we went out again, did we? Because that was Saturday.
No,
Saturday
they had
night
a
was the
couple. There were
dinner.
some other groups that did some things that were going on, but that's really what it was because there's 100 different advisors in there. So some people would have other, like the catamaran thing that Tessa did was like somebody planned that, and then kind of a spur of the moment. Then somebody else planned something else that they were looking for people to go on. So you really get kind of pick and choose. People were going on tours, walking tours down on the boardwalk in Puerto Vallarta. Some people did ATV tours or they did tequila plantation tours. So there's a ton of stuff to do. I was personally, for me, like I said, I was content to just sit at the resort and enjoy the beach. Um, I don't know if I were to go back. And I will admit, I would like to go there with my husband. So sometimes I think some of those excursions are things I would really enjoy to do with my husband. So I have a tendency just not to do them so that I can have a reason to go back and do them with him.
I would definitely I think I might take my kids there eventually, like, if I take them to Mexico. There's just a lot to do in town. It's very safe, they're very friendly. On Saturday afternoon, they did have the product demo, which was fun. So we were able to see the secret box. So we have pictures, and that's why, because we were able to see it. There was 103 advisors. 3 of them were from Australia, and then less than 10 from Canada, but it was like 8 or 9-ish, and
Yeah.
obviously the rest US. And we got to see the new prototype for the new personal trimmer. We could not take pictures of it because it's not final design. And that will be coming in like August, September, and it will be big enough to hold bigger photos. I don't love guillotine trimmers, so that will be the test, right? You guys will all figure out in Power Hour, is Tesla going to convert to the personal trimmer? For the sake of sales and promotion, I want you all to buy it. So I can pay my bills. I'll probably pretend like I like it for a while. So all of you that watch Power Hour can tune in 6 months later to see if it lasts. I think it worked really well. I just don't love guillotines, I think.
I loved it, guys. I'm super excited about it. I love guillotine style. And it is, you can have the 6 inch wide photos. You can actually go wider than that. The base itself, the platform itself, though, will go out to 6 inches. So that's really nice. The measurements are super easy. They've got some added details in there that is going to make it nice with how it will pack together, I guess the way you can say it, with the 12-inch trimmer. So it's gonna be really, really nice to see. But some of the final details, like Tessa mentioned, that Sherry, who's the product development coordinator or director, she's, was very much like, this is, and I think Noreen, I don't know if you were there when Noreen was talking about it, but she said they went through several prototypes, that it just takes, because the design of this all started back in November of 21, right? When you went to New Orleans, and you guys got a vote on the features, the achievers for that New Orleans trip. They got a vote on the features. And then it's now been, 2.5 years going through the product development part, back and forth with design, prototypes. No, yes, this didn't work. So for those of you who like the guillotine style, it's going to be great. Tessa is weird. I'm just going to admit, you guys, she's like, her brain is backwards. When you listen to her talk, seriously, she we're at the table with these people we're talking about, and she's just trying to explain why she doesn't care for the guillotine style. And it has to do with how she likes to trim her photos. But then she's explaining how she likes to trim her photos. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my word, you are complex when you're doing that.
Well, then
Like,
there's Megan over here. She's already has all the teaching tips ready for you guys. She was literally talking to me as if I was clueless on how to use a trimmer. I'm like, you have to do this and this and this. So stay tuned. She'll tell you how to use it appropriately, and I'll try. We'll see.
next time I'm going to Indiana in September for her September crop. And I think what's going to happen is somebody's going to have an intervention, and I'm going to have to take away her old straight trimmer. And what's
I
going
would
to be,
probably
it's like,
switch.
when you have a child who likes their binky or their blankie too much, and you just need to just rip it off real fast, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I don't know. I mean, we'll try. I'll try. I'll try. We'll
And it's
see.
not going to be called the personal trimmer. It's going to be called the photo
Photo
trimmer.
trimmer.
So to kind of just differentiate between the rotary trimmer and the photo trimmer, the photo trimmer is definitely designed to cut photos, where the rotary trimmer, not quite so much.
I don't think we got too much else about. I'm not. I mean, and in that we got to vote on, and one of the items I'm going to put in the trip bundle next year. So if you're an advisor or you want to be and you want to go for the trip, um, we know, like, we were able to vote on one of those things. Did we get any other product tips that you can think of?
No, no, not really. I mean, Allison mentioned, I mean, there was very generalized discussion about things that are coming forward, like maybe very much like, um, there is the Beachy collection. We alternate every year back and forth about like a tropical summer water collection versus a northern coastal water collection. So like last year we had something that was, what was last year's,
Tropic time?
but Tropic Time came out last January, right? Anyway, previously we had Seaside. Oh,
Seas, please. Spring
Please
waters.
came out last, whatever. It is time for us to have another northern coastal based one to replace Seaside, right? And so chatting with Allison and somebody else was also East Coast based, there was basically, yes, that is coming this summer. So those of you who are more northern based, like me here in Seattle, I enjoy the tropical collections, but that's not what my coast looks like if I go to coast here in Washington, or for those of you that go over, that you're more, anything north of North Carolina. I don't know. When do they stop having palm trees and so forth? There will be a regular summer collection. I believe they said something is going to come out in uh, May, beginning of May, which I think is our typical timing for the summer. I don't know. And that's the one I forgot to follow up, because Allison did say that she would have shown me the sneak peek of it on her computer if I had tracked her down when she was looking at her computer. But she was just, after like the first day, she wasn't with her computer. So
Yeah, and then
I wasn't too much into the stalking. That would have just been awkward. What is your cat doing?
She wants pets, so she's sitting here rolling around purring. Can you hear her purring?
No.
Attacking my arm. Didn't she say that, or did I was just too hopeful that we will maybe see a maritime reprise because it's been so requested? Or was am I still hoping?
She referenced that it had a maritime vibe. So if you guys, if for those of you who don't know, maritime was very much makes me think of like the Caroline or like the duny beaches where you've got like the grass stuff coming up, has all the other stuff in it too. But that was the vibe that I got from that. So if you are in a coastal area that has a lot of those, grassy dunes and things like that, there was elements of that in maritime along with all the other nautical stuff. It was very, very pretty. It didn't last very long. That one sold out really quick.
Yeah, it sold out really fast. Um, I'm trying to think. I did not attack her about Tangerine, so I don't think it's going anywhere. In the end, it's like things were busy. It was hard to have like true conversations about what I really want to know because there's always other people around. The conversations are brief, but as a company, they're doing very well. I mean, a lot of people are worried because of Close to My Heart closing, but there's no risk of that. They will do what they have to keep things churning, if you will, to stay positive, and that will mean we'll continue to see a lot of product because they like to have something everyone will want, so we all keep buying. Um, I can't think of anything else that was like that was about
Yeah, I
products
can't think
or.
of either. I was actually hoping for a few more product sneak peeks, maybe. I mean, it's very exciting to see the photo trimmer, and of course, getting to view the secret box is pretty fantastic. Looking forward to being able to create with that one. And so yeah,
And then on the last night, they had a big party
yeah,
on the beach. You probably saw some of the photos. That's where the photo of us came from that I posted yesterday. They did the I Heart CM in real big letters, which of course when it was at sunset, so everyone was like fighting to get the perfect sunspot. And then they had dinner and a DJ. And a lot of you ever supported her, and Megan was the top points earner for the trip by far. So she also earned her own suite. So we only had her share a room the first night. And y'all know I don't like to share rooms, but we agreed we could actually be even bed partners. So she was in my room the first night. So I just had a king. Um, but we did well. We didn't touch each other. I didn't kick her. I didn't roll in her face. She didn't get my space. So if
she
we
doesn't
have to,
snore.
I don't snore.
She doesn't even, guys. Okay, so you have to understand, I am the worst sleeper in the world. If you breathe funny, I don't care. There are people that I don't snore, but no, 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 you breathe out loud, like you breathe vocally. Like I cannot handle that. I'm such a poor sleeper, and so Tessa is perfect for me to room with because she makes no noise while sleeping, and so that's great. That's great. I have determined though that I was creative members of fantastic. They upgraded me to the suite. It was great. I would say it was slightly wasted on me because I didn't have anybody else with me. The seating at the Hilton is very what I call deep seating. So it was very to me, it was a little hard to their chairs that they had in the rooms and on the balconies was a deep seated style chair. And it was a little bit uncomfortable for me to get. I mean, Tessa's really tall, maybe it's perfect for her. For me, it was a little bit more challenging just because I was trying to find support for my back. So I wasn't like clear back here. Um, and I also did determine that I really need to have a private room again. I loved that part. I mean, Tessa doesn't want to room with me. I mean, she doesn't want to hang out with me. She doesn't want to do anything. She doesn't want to hang out. She doesn't want to room with anybody. I can't even pass the bar for that.
I tried to
So
come back and hang out with her on the last day, but she was already upstairs. So I just took a nap on her cabana without her
yeah,
before
I can't remember why I went
we went to the
upstairs.
party.
Oh, I know because I met with somebody. One of the Canadian gals had asked to chat with me about some things. So I got together with her. And then by the time we got done, it was time to get ready for the little get together last night, the fiesta.
Yeah.
So that's fine. It's all
Yeah. So it
fine.
was a good ending. And then we had a little bit of time in the morning to make our power hour handouts, get the email out, get the suitcase zipped up, and then get our Uber back to the airport and make our way. Neither of us had any issues coming back. But I had to go through customs in Minneapolis, and it was like an hour, which I wasn't expecting up there. But there was a whole flight from Amsterdam ahead of us and a flight from China. and then ours. And I could handle it. It's fine. We were there early. I had 2 hours. At one point, I was like, "Let's hurry up so I don't miss my flight." But do you know what pissed me off? It's like we get through all of that. You get your bag. You have to recheck your bag before you can go to the normal gate. They made us dump all of our liquids. Like, so we pass through Mexican security, then we buy our drinks. We get to Minneapolis, go through customs, and then we have to dump everything before we can go to the regular gate. I was like, where do you think I have the possibility of getting anything about liquid? And I had not been drinking in the customs line because I didn't want to have to go find the bathroom until I was full on done. And then I had to throw it all away. And by then I'm texting Megan because I was like, okay, the patience of the day is gone.
She was done. She was
I was
done.
done.
And then she couldn't get her charger thing on your flight to work. And she's messaging me, how does this work? Does yours work? Because I was on a Delta flight as well. And yeah, I mean, it works. And then on the flip side, I mean, I came into Seattle. My husband hadn't even left home when I landed. And I live a solid 45 minutes on a good day to get to SeaTac. So I was slightly frustrated because I literally got off the plane, went to the bathroom, and gone through customs in 20 minutes because I purposely did not take check luggage. I had carry on only, and Seattle does they've called my passport control or something like that. It's called MPC. It's an app you can go through. You basically put in you can take a screenshot of your passport, all this stuff you do ahead of time, and then they have a special line for those people, and it's you have to be a US citizen or a green card, or maybe you can be Canadian. I cannot remember if the Canadians can also do it, but it was and then there was nobody in line for that because a lot of these people coming in, if you're an international traveler, you have to go to the other line. They maybe they want to survey you more, whatever they require. They maybe want more to actually like physically check your papers, whatever, or your passport. So it was fantastic. And I'm sitting out there and I was a little frustrated with my husband. He's like, well, you told me you arrived at 6:40 and we got in just after 6 o'clock. And I said, we get in at 6:40 and I also gave you my flight number. Isn't that what most people do? You say, my flight's supposed to arrive at 6:40. Kind of a general time, like so mentally you think, oh, it's in the evening. I can do something during the day. I just have to be ready that evening to go get my wife from airport. Oh, she gave
I think she
whatever
froze on.
time. And then to do that, and then he just doesn't do that. And I told him, I said, I'm really sorry. I thought that was just what you did. So
No, we made it home. Power hour happened. We didn't have photos, but I think we've been forgiven. So, and next month's podcast will be Tessa's trip to Seattle, staying with Megan's cat. I'm just kidding, but it was fun too.
Next month's power hour is going to be Megan's podcast about how to better prepare, like longer, like start earlier when you get ready to sell your house. Don't wait to the last 10 days.
Hopefully you have it sold. You'll have it sold by the time we see you
I
all again.
hopefully I will. And then we'll have one last, the June one's going to be before I move. And then when I'm in July, I'll be in Arizona. Super excited.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of Power Hour trip to Mexico. So we will see you on May 14th. Post your layouts. We'll get ours up there tomorrow too. And if you're interested in going to Mexico with us next year, or you want to take a sticker box, you know where to find us. So we'll see y'all
Thanks,
later.
everybody.